Mrs. Stowick of Appledorn continues on page 70. That was in Westerbork. Anne was happy there, although we weren't yet in safety, nor at the end of our misery, for most of us was not yet the last stage, but the one before the last, or the one before that. At the time we did not really know what the end was, but we knew we were not safe, and we were afraid. On September 2nd, we were told that 1,000 persons would leave in the morning. We were among them, the Franks, the Van Dans, Mr. Dussel, everybody I knew. Later we learned that this was the very last shipment to leave Holland. It was a long freight train. We were driven like cattle to the railroad platform, and 75 persons were bundled into each other. The cars were closed tight. There was only one small barred window high up. On the third night, the train suddenly came to a stop. The doors of the car were slid violently open, and the first we saw of Auschwitz were the glaring searchlights fixed on the train. And then a loudspeaker drowned out all the voices roaring, "Women to the left, men to the right." I saw them as they went away. Mr. Van Daan and Dussel and Peter and Mr. Frank, all of them being driven to the right. But I saw no sign of my husband. He had suddenly vanished. "Listen," the loudspeaker bawled again. "It is an hour's march to the women's camp. For children and the sick, there are trucks waiting at the end of the platform." We could see the trucks. They were painted with big red crosses, but we had no chance to reach them. We could see that at once, for everyone made a rush for them. And who among us was not sick and done in after those days on the train? Knots of people were still hanging to them as they started off. No one had put a stop to the far too many who were crowding in. But the trucks did not go very far. Not one of those who went along on the train's trucks ever arrived at the women's camp, and no one ever found any trace of them. Anne seemed to me in Auschwitz even more beautiful than in Westerbork, although she now no longer had her long hair. On our arrival, our heads had been shaved. They needed women's hair for power belting and pipe joint packing in U-boats, I think. But now you could see that her beauty was wholly in her eyes alone, which seemed to grow bigger the thinner she became. Her gaiety had vanished, but she was still lively and sweet. With her charm, she sometimes secured things that the rest of us had long since given up hope for.